Ladies and gentlemen, in this episode, you are going to hear opinions. And while the podcast is endorsed by Uriah Heep, the opinions of the host and various guests do not necessarily represent the opinions of the band or any of the members past or present. With that being said, let's celebrate the music of Uriah Heep. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and we are covering right now the songs of Season 11, the 11th album of Uriah Heep, Innocent Victim, the one with the really creepy snake on the front. And that's okay, because the music inside is fantastic. We've gone through a good chunk of the songs. We've really, we're down to the last two on the album before we hit the bonus tracks. Today is a little bit interesting because this is the first song that was not written by a member of Uriah Heep. As far as I know, it's not a cover, but Jack Williams is listed as the only writer on the song. And we had another song with Jack Williams that he co-wrote with Ken Hensley. So he's not a stranger to the band, but this is the first song that a member of the band did not write. So kind of an interesting time. Now, we're going to get into the song here in just a minute, but I just did want to take a moment to say thank you guys for listening. You know what? When I look at the numbers and I look at, how many people have shared posts and things like that, it just makes me so happy that this is all worth it because you guys seem to be enjoying it. So thank you very much for taking the time to share, to leave ratings and reviews and all that sort of thing. It is deeply appreciated on my end, I assure you. And I'm sure the band appreciates it too. So we're going to get into it right now. Here is The Dance by Uriah Heep, written by Jack Williams. Well, it definitely has a Uriah Heep feel to it, doesn't it? Really interesting keyboard line. You got Mick strumming there and doing those, I guess you would call it like a muted picking. Drums, bass, everything just sounds like it was a Uriah Heep song. It's interesting, though, because you don't really know what the process is, right? Somebody might come in and say, hey, I wrote some lyrics and a melody. If you guys want to use it, go ahead. And they just took it from there and built around the basic skeleton of the song. It could have been a finished song that he brought and said, hey, here's the song. If you guys want to do it, put it on your album, take it, it's yours. Who knows how it all came about, but it definitely feels like a Uriah Heep song. Really like the tone of the synth there too. It's kind of, it almost feels like a theremin. I had to think of it for a second, but yeah, kind of like a theremin, but it's not. It's a theremin feeling synth patch, but it definitely is not a theremin. But it sounds kind of similar in style to it with a string pad behind it. But it sounds really good. I like that combination of tone, and it's a nice lead without being too overbearing.
See the picture in the hall, framed in magic on the wall. Ain't it funny how it goes? What's on the inside, no one knows. What makes this picture so inviting to those who stand outside it?
I think this is the most adventurous I've seen Trevor Boulder so far. Really like what he's playing here. It sounds good. He really feels now like he fits in with the style that the previous bass players had set for the band. But I also really like what Mick is playing here. It's very simple. It is muted, but it almost sounds percussive the way he's playing it. I mean, you could use castanets, or you could use a number of different things to create something percussive there. But the guitar really kind of has a percussive feel because it's so muted. I mean, you get a little bit of the distortion, just enough to feel it, but not anything that's too heavy. So it's a really interesting sound, and he's playing just so gently, but definitely it's a very present thing in the song. And of course, Lawton's vocals, I don't know how many layers there are on this, but he sounds really good when he layers himself. And, this is no difference. In fact, this is the first time I've kind of made this comparison, but he sounds a little bit similar to Graham Bonnet, who you may know from Rainbow, Michael Schenker Group, Alcatraz, the Graham Bonnet Band. That probably was obvious. But he has that's just that same power that he puts into everything. He's got just a little bit of grit in his voice naturally, as Graham does. But yeah, he has that same kind of just general sound to him that Graham does. I really like it. Wow, I feel like he's so restrained on some of these vocal parts, not pushing it or not singing higher to try and really stay in those lower registers in parts. It sounds good though, but it sounds like he's kind of uncomfortable. But I think that's also kind of the point of the vocal as well. So it could be a combination. It could be that that's just the style for the song. But having not heard him sing quite this way before, it's really interesting. But I think it sounds good, especially being layered. Music is continuing on very nice. I really like the keyboards in the back. It sounds like he's back on the Hammond there, but nothing too forceful, just keeping that thickness in the background. Drums are solid. The intro of a tambourine, which is not a common instrument for Uriah Heep. But it's all put together very well. Another thing too that seems to be a theme on a lot of songs on this album is just the mood that they're creating. It feels like I'm transported into a different world with each song, and I really like that. A lot of times albums just have a sound or a feel to them, and I think this one kind of does. But each song still stands out on its own, and I really like that. But the mood on this one is really good too, really solid. That's another thing that Uriah Heep up to this point has become really good at, is that blend of guitar and keyboard during the solo section. Usually you would have one backing up the other, and that's fine. Sometimes, for a couple of measures, you'll play together, you'll play opposite each other. But these kind of solo sections I absolutely love because they really enhance the mood of the song for one, But for another, they just make the band feel so cohesive, like they're really playing together because the blend is so tight, right? I mean, the performance is tight, the audio is tight, the mix, everything just sounds so good. But the mood, again, it comes down to the mood for me, is just an enhanced version of what we've heard throughout the song so far. So if you come in with a solo that's, too fast, too far off the map of the song, you can really kill that mood very easily. But this is done so straightforward and tastefully. I'm really glad that there wasn't any kind of other solo over it, just something that, enhanced the song without being over the top. Very on par fills for Lee Kerslake right there. I would know those, especially that second to the last one. I would know that anywhere as his style. But very cool. The vocals are really strong through here, but the music is backing them up very nicely. It's not intruding on the vocals at all. You can play a drum fill like that and still have a strong vocal and not have one overpower the other. It's such a fine line sometimes, but they're writing it here just perfectly. And again, the mood is just really, really taking me on this song. I'm going to have to say this is going to be one of my favorites for sure. It's kind of mysterious. It's kind of haunting. It's kind of, it just sucks you in, that lick between the keys and the guitar. I'm trying to find the right words, but I'm just getting lost in it because it's so, it pulls me in, But what's interesting is normally when you would have a guitar and a keyboard, you would have some other melodic rhythm going on. And in this case, the only thing that's really carrying that is that muted strumming that Mick's doing. And it's only really just a couple of notes here and there. But that's kind of keeping that going. The bass is really meandering a lot, so it's not really holding that same kind of melody that you would have to put in the structure of a song. But the bass complements the drums very well. That's a really nice thing to hear Trevor Boulder playing at that, from that angle, because I think that I kind of felt like he must be capable of it, but he's really laid back so far from what I've heard from him. Little packets of, this is why they got me into the band. I'm more than a root note player. But this was really the first one where all the way through I can say, okay, now I totally get why they were sold on him. And his sound is good too. I really like the tonal quality of his bass as well as the performance. But what a fantastic song. I mean, this is one that if it would have been a minute longer in the fade, I would have been perfectly fine with it, because I think I would just get carried away, And I like songs that can just kind of, pick me up and just carry me away or set me down on like one of those inflatable things on a river and just let me go down the water wherever it goes. And songs that can do that to me are ones that typically become ones that are go-to songs for me. Ones that if I want to just put something on and not have to think about it, just enjoy the song itself. And they're usually instrumentals, but, songs like this certainly have that. I could listen to that for, a long time. So I would say this is, for me, at least one of my favorites. Up to you guys to decide for yourselves, of course, because there's no right and wrong. Either a song strikes you or it doesn't, or it hits you at just the right time where it's going to have some kind of meaning for you. But, there's so many factors that go into whether you like a song or not. But in this case, I can say hands down, love this song. So glad I heard it. Now I'm bummed that there isn't a bonus version of it, some alternate take or something on the CD, because that might have been cool to hear, but just as easily could have ruined it for me. So, we have what we have, as I always say. So thank you guys for joining me for another episode of the show. I want to let you know that tomorrow, I don't really plug my other show on this show a lot because this show is really about Uriah Heep, but related to Uriah Heep, and I'll remind you guys again on Thursday, I will be reviewing Lee Kerslake's newest album. Probably going to be a little tough for me to get through. I haven't recorded the episode yet, but that will be forthcoming. And then the following week, I will be doing Ken Hensley's last album. So going to be a couple emotional weeks for me on the Haskincast podcast. I'll have links in the show notes for you guys. If I don't, and you can't find it, just send me a note and I'll shoot it over to you. I do get a little forgetful when it comes to things I promise like 2 weeks in advance. So if it's not there, then just go ahead and holler at me and I'll get it added. But thank you guys for joining me. Have a great couple of next days. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode of Uriah Heep as we hit the last proper track on the album. And then we start digging into the bonus tracks. So enjoy, be safe, have fun. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!